Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Ukraine's president has told the Italian parliament that his country was on the brink of surviving its war with Russian forces that he warned wanted to break through to the rest of Europe. Russia's attack on Ukraine risks causing famine in countries around the world, Zelensky added, urging greater help to defeat the invaders. In his latest address to Western lawmakers, President Zelensky said via video link that his people were clinging to survival, with the Russian military devastating Ukrainian cities and slaughtering civilians. Replying to Zelensky, Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi said that Ukraine had offered heroic resistance to the Russian invasion and promised continued support for refugees fleeing the fighting, as well as military aid. Drone video released today shows explosions at factories and industrial buildings in the city of Mariupol. The Azov Battalion of the National Guard of Ukraine, which released the video, said in an accompanying caption that the Russians are chaotically firing enemy fire, enemy aircraft are dropping bombs on the infrastructure of Mariupol. Factories and industrial enterprises that provided jobs and allowed them to conduct international trade are being destroyed. A super yacht linked to the sanctioned Russian oligarch Roman Abramovich has been greeted by protests as it attempted to dock in Turkey. Mi Solaris, which cost an estimated $600 million to build, was met at the port of Bodrum by young protesters in a small dinghy waving Ukrainian flags. They were part of a junior sailing team which was in Turkey to compete in an annual competition, having left Ukraine before the Russian invasion. The dinghy was eventually escorted away by Turkish police. Mr. Abramovich, the Chelsea FC owner, is currently under both UK and EU sanctions as part of a crackdown on Russian oligarchs. Meanwhile, a Russian court has sentenced the jailed Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny to 9 years in prison on fraud charges. The ruling that will keep President Vladimir Putin's most prominent opponent out of active politics for years ahead. Navalny, who was also found guilty of contempt of court, is already serving a 2.5-year sentence at a prison camp east of Moscow. He dismissed the latest criminal case against him as politically motivated and pleaded not guilty. After the sentencing, his lawyer was arrested after talking to the media. Rescuers at the site of a plane crash in southern China have found burnt wreckage and personal belongings of those on board, but no sign of any survivors. The cause of the Boeing 737 crash is being investigated, with rescue workers sifting through debris, but recovery work has been hampered by difficult terrain. China Eastern Flight MU-5735 was carrying 132 people when it nosedived 30,000 feet into hills in Guangxi province. There has been an outpouring of grief in China, where families of those on board are waiting anxiously for news. Meanwhile, locals performed Buddhist rituals near the crash site to commemorate the victims. Up to 28 million people in East Africa are at risk of extreme hunger due to price increases because of the Ukraine war and a potential lack of rain this March. The non-profit organisation Oxfam warned that Kenya, Somalia and Ethiopia are experiencing the driest weather in 40 years. Meanwhile, South Sudan is tackling ongoing flooding. Describing the global response as woefully underfunded, the charity said only 3% of the $6 billion UN appeal for Ethiopia, Somalia and South Sudan has been funded. And Britain's Prince William has hailed Belize's dedication to democratic principles before commenting that those principles were under threat in besieged Ukraine. On day 3 of his trip to the Caribbean nation, half a world away from the current European conflict, William said he stood in solidarity with Ukrainians following its invasion by Russia. William extensively quoted his grandmother, Queen Elizabeth, who remains Belize's head of state following its independence from Britain in 1981. The arrival of William and his wife Kate to the Central American country on Saturday coincided with the celebration of Queen Elizabeth's 70th year on the throne.
Belize may be small, but your rich blend of ethnic groups contributes to the harmonious tapestry of life. Integral to this is your belief in upholding democratic values, which you have protected so proudly for over 40 years. To quote your own national anthem, Belize is a tranquil haven of democracy.
And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel Studios in Lagos.